Welcome back to another story on Infidelity Tales Lab. Before we begin, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. The Perfect Facade. Gabriel Tate stood at his office window on the 42nd floor, surveying the city below like a modern-day emperor. At 38, he had built McDaniel Construction from a small family business into one of the region's most successful development companies. His steel-gray eyes reflected the same hardness that had carried him through countless board meetings and hostile takeovers. Gabriel didn't just win, he dominated, and he never forgot those who crossed him. The mahogany-paneled office bore testament to his success. Awards lining the walls, a crystal decanter of 25-year-old scotch, and photographs of groundbreaking ceremonies where politicians and business leaders sought his favor. But the centerpiece was a family portrait: Gabriel, his wife Monica, and their 7-year-old daughter Samantha. The picture captured what everyone believed was the perfect American family. Monica Ortega Tate had been the crown jewel of the local social scene when Gabriel married her 8 years ago. A former beauty queen turned interior designer, she possessed the kind of refined elegance that opened doors in their affluent circles. Her long auburn hair and emerald eyes had captivated Gabriel from their first meeting at a charity gala, but it was her sharp intellect and business acumen that sealed his devotion. Together, they were unstoppable. He provided the financial empire, she provided the social connections and cultural refinement. Their daughter Samantha was the embodiment of their combined strengths. Intelligent beyond her years, charming, and already showing signs of inheriting her father's strategic mind. Gabriel saw himself in her calculating gaze when she negotiated for extra dessert or orchestrated elaborate games with her cousins. But beneath the polished exterior, cracks had begun to form. Gabriel's relentless pursuit of success had grown increasingly consuming. 18-hour workdays had become the norm, and when he was home, his mind remained tethered to deals and developments. Monica had grown distant, spending more time at her design studio and less time sharing the intimate conversations that once bound them together. The changes had been subtle at first. Monica's increased interest in evening client meetings, her new workout routine that required early morning gym sessions, and her sudden fascination with her phone that she now guarded with unusual protectiveness. Gabriel, consumed with orchestrating a merger that would double his company's value, attributed these shifts to her natural evolution as a successful businesswoman. Their social circle remained intact, regularly gathering for dinner parties and charity events where Gabriel and Monica played their roles to perfection. Monica's sister Cassandra and her husband Daniel Scott were frequent visitors, along with their precocious 4-year-old daughter Erin. Gabriel genuinely enjoyed these family gatherings, finding them a respite from the corporate battlefield. Daniel Scott presented an interesting contrast to Gabriel. Where Gabriel was calculated and methodical, Daniel was charming and spontaneous. A real estate broker with an easy smile and natural charisma, he had a gift for making people feel like they were the most interesting person in the room. His sandy brown hair and boyish features made him appear younger than his 35 years, and his quick wit made him popular at social gatherings. What Gabriel didn't know was that Daniel's charm masked a deeper darkness. Behind his easy smile lay a man who had spent years cultivating the art of manipulation, using his natural charisma to bend situations to his advantage. While Gabriel built his empire through calculated risks and strategic brilliance, Daniel preferred to take what he wanted through deception and betrayal. The pool party had been Monica's idea, a way to celebrate the beginning of summer and give the family a chance to reconnect. Gabriel had reluctantly agreed to take the afternoon off, knowing that maintaining family relationships was crucial to his public image and personal stability. The estate's elaborate pool area, complete with a waterfall feature and outdoor kitchen, provided the perfect backdrop for what should have been a relaxing family afternoon. As Gabriel watched his wife adjust the pool furniture with meticulous precision, he noticed the subtle tension in her shoulders, the way her smile didn't quite reach her eyes when she looked at him. He filed these observations away with the same analytical precision he applied to business negotiations, but attributed them to stress from her expanding design business. The afternoon had started perfectly. Daniel regaling everyone with humorous stories from his real estate adventures, while Cassandra caught up on family gossip. But when little Erin refused to change into her swimsuit, complaining of a stomachache, the dynamics shifted. Gabriel noticed the sharp edge in Cassandra's voice when she told him to leave Erin alone, and the way Daniel quickly supported his wife's directive. Chapter 2. The Revelation. The bathroom encounter with Erin would haunt Gabriel for the rest of his life. When the 4-year-old had followed him with trembling steps, her usual bright demeanor replaced by something that made Gabriel's protective instincts surge. He knelt down to her eye level. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" Gabriel asked gently, his voice taking on the soft tone he reserved for children and wounded animals. Erin's green eyes, so much like her Aunt Monica's, filled with tears as she struggled with words too heavy for her young shoulders. "Uncle Gabriel, I saw Mommy and Aunt Monica doing something bad with a man who wasn't Daddy." The words hit Gabriel like a physical blow, but years of high-stakes negotiations had taught him to maintain composure under pressure. "What kind of bad thing, Erin?" "They were kissing and touching, and Mommy told me it was her special secret, but it made my tummy hurt because the man looked like Uncle Daniel, but different clothes." Erin's voice broke as she continued. "Aunt Monica gave me candy and said if I told anyone, something terrible would happen to our family." Gabriel's world tilted on its axis, but his expression remained calm and reassuring. He pulled Erin into a gentle hug, his mind racing through implications and possibilities. "You're very brave for telling me, Erin. You did the right thing. Are you going to be mad at Mommy and Aunt Monica?" Erin whispered against his shoulder. "I'm not mad at anyone right now," Gabriel said, meaning it. He wasn't mad. He was something far more dangerous. He was calculating. "But I need you to promise me something. Don't tell anyone else about this conversation, okay? Let Uncle Gabriel handle the grown-up problems." When they returned to the pool area, Gabriel's trained eye immediately cataloged every micro-expression, every gesture, every glance between the adults. Monica's laugh seemed too bright, too forced. Daniel's jokes carried an undercurrent of nervous energy. Cassandra's protective stance around Erin suddenly made perfect sense. She was guarding not just her daughter, but a secret that could destroy 2 marriages. Gabriel excused himself early, claiming urgent business calls, and retreated to his home office. As the sounds of the pool party continued outside his window, he sat in his leather chair and began to plan. The Gabriel Tate who had built an empire from nothing was now focused on a different kind of construction project, building an airtight case against those who had betrayed him. His first step was hiring Roman McDaniel, a private investigator whose reputation for discretion and thoroughness was legendary among the city's elite. Roman was a former detective who had left the force after becoming disgusted with bureaucratic limitations on justice. His methods were unconventional but effective, and his loyalty could be bought, but once purchased, it was absolute. "I need to know everything," Gabriel told Roman during their clandestine meeting at a downtown hotel. "Financial records, communications, patterns of behavior, associations. Everything." Roman's weathered face showed no surprise at the request. "How deep do you want me to dig?" "All the way to bedrock," Gabriel replied, his gray eyes showing the same intensity that had intimidated corporate rivals for years. "And Roman? Discretion is not just preferred, it's mandatory. If word of this investigation reaches the wrong ears, our business relationship will become very unpleasant very quickly." Within 72 hours, Roman had begun assembling a comprehensive dossier. Monica's client meetings corresponded perfectly with Daniel's available time slots. Security footage from the luxury hotel downtown showed them entering and leaving together on multiple occasions. Financial records revealed that Daniel had been paying for these hotel rooms using a credit card tied to a shell company he'd established for business development. But Gabriel wanted more than just evidence of the affair. He wanted to understand the complete scope of the betrayal, the full network of deception that had been constructed around him. His methodical mind demanded total information before taking action. Chapter 3. The Web Unravels. The deeper Roman dug, the more complex the web of betrayal became. Daniel's manipulation extended far beyond simple adultery. He had been systematically positioning himself to benefit from inside information about Gabriel's business deals, using his relationship with Monica to gain insights into upcoming developments and investment opportunities. Financial analysis revealed that Daniel had made several mysteriously well-timed real estate investments that coincided with Gabriel's confidential business plans. Properties that Daniel purchased weeks before Gabriel's public announcements had netted him substantial profits. It wasn't corporate espionage in the traditional sense, but it was betrayal of trust that cut Gabriel to the core. Monica's role in this deception proved even more devastating. Phone records showed extensive communications between her and Daniel, often occurring immediately after Gabriel shared sensitive business information with his wife. What Gabriel had interpreted as intimate marital communication had actually been intelligence gathering for his wife's lover. The investigation also revealed that Cassandra was not an innocent bystander. She had been actively facilitating the affair, providing alibis and creating cover stories. Worse, she had been coaching Aaron to keep secrets, using her own daughter as a tool to protect the conspiracy of adultery. Gabriel's sister-in-law had played her role perfectly, showing concern and sympathy whenever Gabriel mentioned feeling disconnected from Monica, all while knowing exactly why his wife was distant. The elaborate deception required coordination and planning that spoke to a level of betrayal that went far beyond a momentary lapse in judgment. But the most chilling discovery came when Roman uncovered the lovers' future plans. Text messages revealed that Monica and Daniel had been discussing divorce strategies, ways to maximize Monica's settlement while minimizing Gabriel's access to Samantha. They had consulted lawyers, investigated Gabriel's assets, and even discussed relocating to another state where Daniel had business connections. Gabriel realized that he wasn't just dealing with an affair. He was looking at a comprehensive strategy to destroy his family and steal his life's work. The revelation transformed his approach from seeking justice to planning war. His first tactical move was ensuring Samantha's safety and security. Gabriel quietly retained the city's most ruthless family law attorney, Orlando McDowell, whose reputation for protecting Father's rights was legendary. Orlando's preliminary assessment was sobering but not hopeless. If they're planning to relocate with your daughter, we need to establish preemptive legal measures, Orlando advised during their confidential consultation. But Gabriel, if you're planning something dramatic, make sure it's legal. Judges don't look favorably on parents who take the law into their own hands. Gabriel's smile was cold and calculating. Everything I do will be perfectly legal, Orlando. But legal doesn't mean gentle. The second phase of Gabriel's strategy involved financial preparation. Using his business connections and insider knowledge of his own company's vulnerabilities, Gabriel began restructuring his assets in ways that would make them impossible for Monica to claim in a divorce. Offshore trusts, complex corporate structures, and strategic debt arrangements, all perfectly legal but devastatingly effective. Gabriel's third move was the most psychologically complex. He began feeding Monica false information about upcoming business deals, watching as Daniel made investment decisions based on deliberately misleading intelligence. The trap was elegant in its simplicity. Gabriel would let them hang themselves with their own greed. As the weeks passed, Gabriel maintained his facade of normalcy while building his case. Family dinners continued, social obligations were met, and business proceeded as usual. But beneath the surface, Gabriel was orchestrating a reckoning that would make his corporate victories look like child's play. Monica, oblivious to the gathering storm, grew increasingly bold in her deception. Her design consultations became longer and more frequent, and she began making subtle inquiries about Gabriel's business plans with a transparency that would have been comical if it weren't so devastating. Daniel, flush with confidence from his successful insider trading, began expanding his operations. He purchased a luxury cabin in the mountains, ostensibly for business retreats, but actually intended as a love nest where he and Monica could plan their future together. Neither Monica nor Daniel understood that Gabriel Tate was not just a successful businessman. He was a predator who had built his empire by identifying weaknesses and exploiting them without mercy. They had made the fatal mistake of believing his public persona of civilized respectability reflected the totality of his capabilities. As Gabriel sat in his office, reviewing Roman's latest intelligence reports, he allowed himself a moment of cold satisfaction. The pieces were in place, the trap was set, and soon his betrayers would discover that Gabriel Tate never forgave, never forgot, and never left a debt unpaid. Chapter 4. The Architect of Destruction. 3 months after Aaron's revelation, Gabriel had transformed from a betrayed husband into something far more dangerous. A master strategist with unlimited resources and an absolute commitment to destruction. His campaign against Monica and Daniel had evolved beyond simple revenge into what military strategists would recognize as total warfare. Gabriel's first major offensive struck Daniel's professional reputation. Using his extensive network of business contacts, Gabriel began systematically undermining Daniel's real estate transactions. Potential buyers received anonymous tips about property defects. Sellers were warned about Daniel's questionable business practices. Financial institutions suddenly became reluctant to approve mortgages for Daniel's clients, citing irregularities in his documentation. The beauty of Gabriel's assault lay in its subtlety. Daniel couldn't identify a specific source of his mounting professional difficulties. Deals that should have closed smoothly began falling apart for seemingly random reasons. His commission income plummeted as clients grew frustrated with delays and complications that appeared to follow Daniel wherever he went. Meanwhile, Gabriel was executing a more personal strategy against Monica. He commissioned Terrence Stewart, a renowned private investigator specializing in digital forensics, to construct a comprehensive archive of Monica's infidelity. Every hotel visit, every clandestine meeting, every lie told to family and friends was documented with forensic precision. But Gabriel's masterpiece was psychological warfare. He began incorporating subtle references to loyalty and betrayal into his conversations with Monica, watching her squirm with guilt and paranoia. He started leaving magazines open to articles about divorce settlements, custody battles, and business partnerships destroyed by infidelity. He purchased books about trust and deception, leaving them strategically placed around the house. "You seem stressed lately," Gabriel observed one evening as Monica struggled to focus on dinner conversation. "Is everything all right with your business?" Monica's fork trembled slightly as she responded, "Just the usual client pressures. You know how demanding the luxury market can be." Gabriel nodded sympathetically while mentally cataloging her increased alcohol consumption, her difficulty sleeping, and her growing irritability with Samantha. The psychological pressure was beginning to fracture Monica's composure, exactly as Gabriel had calculated. The most devastating component of Gabriel's strategy targeted the collaborative nature of Monica and Daniel's deception. Gabriel began feeding Monica different false information than he provided to Daniel, creating inconsistencies that would eventually force them to confront the contradictions in their stolen intelligence. When Daniel made a disastrous investment in commercial property that Gabriel had described to Monica as a guaranteed gold mine, while simultaneously telling his business partners it was overpriced and poorly positioned, the lovers' first major conflict erupted. Roman surveillance captured their heated argument outside the mountain cabin, where accusations of miscommunication and blame-shifting revealed the fragility of their alliance. Gabriel watched the recorded confrontation with the satisfaction of a chess master observing his opponent's pieces colliding with each other. Gabriel's business empire, meanwhile, continued expanding at an unprecedented pace. The merger he had been orchestrating during the early stages of his personal crisis had succeeded beyond all projections, doubling his company's value and cementing his position as one of the region's most powerful businessmen. This professional success provided Gabriel with resources and influence that his enemies couldn't match. When Daniel attempted to leverage political connections to investigate the suspicious pattern of his business difficulties, Gabriel's contributions to city council campaigns and county development projects ensured that such inquiries received minimal attention. The psychological toll on Gabriel's targets was becoming increasingly visible. Daniel developed a nervous tic when discussing business, his natural charisma replaced by desperate aggressiveness that alienated potential clients. Monica's drinking increased, and her once meticulous attention to her appearance began showing signs of strain. But Gabriel's campaign was about more than just destroying his enemies. It was about protecting his daughter and ensuring justice. Every action was calculated to establish a legal and moral foundation for the custody battle that would inevitably follow his marriage's collapse. Orlando McDowell had been busy constructing the legal framework for Gabriel's victory. Bank records, communication logs, and witness testimony would demonstrate Monica's unfitness as a mother and her systematic deception of the family courts. Daniel's insider trading, while difficult to prosecute criminally, would provide compelling evidence of his character and judgment. The beauty of your approach, Orlando explained during one of their strategy sessions, is that you're not just documenting their crimes, you're creating a comprehensive portrait of their moral bankruptcy. No judge will award custody to someone who would manipulate a child to hide adultery. Gabriel's most subtle masterstroke involved Cassandra. Rather than confronting his sister-in-law directly, Gabriel began providing her with false information about his suspicions, watching as she scrambled to warn Monica and Daniel. These intercepted warnings, captured by Roman's extensive surveillance network, would provide devastating evidence of the conspiracy's full scope. As winter approached, Gabriel's enemies found themselves trapped in a web of their own making. Daniel's real estate business was hemorrhaging money, his professional reputation was in ruins, and his relationship with Monica was fracturing under the pressure of their mounting failures. Monica, meanwhile, was discovering that the psychological pressure of maintaining her double life, while under Gabriel's subtle but relentless scrutiny, was beyond her capabilities. Her design business was suffering as clients noticed her distraction and unreliability. Her social standing was eroding as friends began questioning her increasingly erratic behavior. Neither Monica nor Daniel understood that they were not fighting bad luck or random misfortune. They were facing the calculated destruction orchestrated by a man who had built an empire through strategic thinking and ruthless execution. Gabriel's greatest advantage was that his enemies continued to underestimate him, viewing him as a wealthy but ultimately conventional businessman who could be outmaneuvered through charm and deception. They failed to recognize that Gabriel Tate was something far more dangerous, a predator who had been awakened by betrayal and was now focused on total annihilation of those who had dared to steal from him. Chapter 5. The Trap Springs. By December, Gabriel's campaign had reached its climactic phase. Daniel's real estate empire was collapsing. His professional reputation was destroyed, and his relationship with Monica had deteriorated into mutual recrimination and desperate attempts to salvage their original plan. The psychological pressure had taken its toll on both conspirators. Monica's drinking had escalated to the point where she was barely functional during evening family interactions. Her hands shook when she tried to apply makeup, and she had developed an observable paranoia about Gabriel's activities and whereabouts. Daniel had grown increasingly erratic, making poor business decisions driven by desperation rather than strategy. His attempt to salvage his real estate career by taking increasingly risky investment positions had only accelerated his financial ruin. Gabriel chose the week before Christmas to spring his trap. He invited Daniel and Cassandra to what appeared to be a casual family gathering, ostensibly to exchange gifts and celebrate the holidays. The setting was Gabriel's study, a room that had witnessed countless business negotiations and now would host the final confrontation. "I've been thinking about loyalty lately," Gabriel began, his voice carrying the same conversational tone he used to discuss quarterly earnings. "About the people we trust with our most important secrets." Monica, Daniel, and Cassandra exchanged nervous glances, each wondering if this was the moment their deception would be exposed. Gabriel continued, seemingly oblivious to the tension. "Daniel, you've been particularly helpful this year, offering advice about real estate investments and market timing. Some of your suggestions have been remarkably prescient. Daniel's nervous laugh sounded forced. Just trying to help family, Gabriel. We all benefit when we share information. Exactly, Gabriel agreed, his gray eyes fixing on Daniel with laser intensity. Sharing information. Like when I mentioned a riverside development opportunity 3 months ago, the one you invested so heavily in. The color drained from Daniel's face as he realized Gabriel was describing the disastrous investment that had cost him nearly everything. The interesting thing about that development, Gabriel continued, is that I never actually planned to pursue it. I thought it was overpriced and poorly positioned. I only mentioned it to test a theory I had about information sharing within our family. Monica's wine glass slipped from her trembling fingers, shattering on the hardwood floor. The sound echoed through the suddenly silent room like a gunshot. Gabriel's smile was cold and predatory. You see, I've discovered that loyalty is like structural integrity in construction. Once it's compromised, the entire edifice becomes unstable. And when buildings become unstable, sometimes they need to be demolished. Cassandra finally found her voice. Gabriel, I don't understand what you're suggesting. Don't. Gabriel's interruption was sharp and final. Don't insult my intelligence with more lies. I know about the hotel meetings. I know about the financial coordination. I know about using Aaron to keep secrets. I know everything. The confession that followed was chaotic and desperate. Monica broke first, dissolving into tears and attempting to blame Daniel for seducing her during a moment of marital vulnerability. Daniel tried to maintain his composure, claiming the relationship was emotional rather than financial, but Gabriel's documentation was too comprehensive to refute. Cassandra's betrayal cut deepest because it involved Samantha's cousin. You used your own daughter as a tool in this deception, Gabriel said, his voice carrying a coldness that made the room temperature seem to drop. You coached a 4-year-old to lie to protect your sister's adultery. It wasn't supposed to go this far, Cassandra pleaded. Monica was just lonely, and Daniel was going through problems with his marriage. Stop. Gabriel's command silenced the room. I'm not interested in your justifications. I'm interested in consequences. Gabriel then revealed the full scope of his knowledge and preparation. Financial records, photographs, recorded conversations, witness statements. The evidence was overwhelming and meticulously organized. But more importantly, Gabriel had already taken legal action to protect himself and Samantha. Monica, you'll find that divorce papers have already been filed. Orlando McDowell is representing me. And given the evidence of adultery and financial conspiracy, I expect the proceedings to be remarkably straightforward. Gabriel turned to Daniel, his expression showing the same intensity he brought to hostile corporate takeovers. Your real estate license is under investigation for ethics violations. Your business accounts have been frozen pending resolution of questions about your investment practices. And several of your former clients are considering legal action for breach of fiduciary duty. The room fell silent except for Monica's sobbing and Daniel's ragged breathing. But that's not the end, Gabriel continued. That's just the legal framework. The real consequences will unfold over the coming months and years as you discover what it means to cross someone who never forgets and never forgives. Cassandra made one final attempt at negotiation. Gabriel, we're family. Surely we can find a way to work through this. Gabriel's laugh was genuinely amused. Family? You ceased being family the moment you decided that my trust was a commodity to be sold. You made your choice, and now you'll live with the consequences. Chapter 6. The Reckoning begins. The aftermath of Gabriel's revelation moved with the precision of a military operation. Within 24 hours, Monica had been served with divorce papers that outlined not just the end of their marriage, but the complete dissolution of their shared life. Gabriel's legal strategy, crafted by Orlando McDowell, was a masterpiece of family law warfare. The evidence of adultery automatically invalidated any claim Monica might have had to alimony. The documentation of her cooperation with Daniel's insider trading destroyed her credibility as a responsible parent. Most devastatingly, The recorded evidence of her using Aaron to maintain secrecy provided grounds for Gabriel to argue that Monica represented a danger to Samantha's emotional well-being. No court in this jurisdiction will award significant custody to someone who manipulates children to hide adultery, Orlando explained to Gabriel as they reviewed the filing strategy. Your wife's legal position is essentially hopeless. Monica's attempts to secure competent legal representation were systematically frustrated by Gabriel's influence within the legal community. The city's most successful family law attorneys were either already retained by Gabriel or had financial relationships with his business empire that created conflicts of interest. The lawyers who were willing to represent Monica were either inexperienced or overwhelmed by the scope of evidence they faced. Daniel's destruction proceeded along parallel tracks. The ethics investigation into his real estate license had been triggered by anonymous complaints from several former clients who had suddenly received detailed information about his questionable business practices. Gabriel's business network ensured that Daniel's attempts to secure new employment or business partnerships met with unexpected obstacles and sudden changes of heart. But Gabriel's most devastating weapon against Daniel was patience. Rather than seeking immediate destruction, Gabriel orchestrated a campaign of systematic pressure that would force Daniel to make increasingly desperate decisions. Business opportunities would appear genuine until the final moment when financing would be mysteriously withdrawn. Professional relationships would seem promising until key contacts would suddenly become unavailable. The psychological warfare proved most effective against Monica. Gabriel remained living in the family home during the legal proceedings, maintaining the appearance of normalcy for Samantha while creating an atmosphere of subtle menace that left Monica constantly on edge. You're handling this very maturely, Gabriel observed during one of their forced interactions while preparing Samantha for school. I appreciate that you're putting our daughter's needs first. Monica's hands shook as she packed Samantha's lunch, knowing that Gabriel's calm demeanor masked something far more dangerous. The man she had married seemed to have been replaced by a stranger who watched her every move with the calculating gaze of a predator. Gabriel's relationship with Samantha became his primary focus and his greatest weapon in the custody battle. He began spending more time with his daughter, helping with homework, attending school events, and creating the kind of involved parent presence that family courts favored. These weren't performances. Gabriel genuinely loved his daughter and was determined to protect her from the consequences of her mother's betrayal. Daddy, why is Mommy sad all the time? Samantha asked during one of their evening conversations. Gabriel chose his words carefully, knowing that every interaction with his daughter might eventually be scrutinized by court officials. Sometimes grown-ups have to make difficult decisions, sweetheart. But no matter what happens, you'll always be the most important thing in my life. Meanwhile, Cassandra was discovering that Gabriel's concept of family loyalty worked both ways. Her husband's business, a small accounting firm that handled several of Gabriel's subsidiary companies, suddenly found its contracts under review for cost optimization. Their social circle, which overlapped significantly with Gabriel's business and political connections, began treating them with noticeable coldness. It's like we've been blacklisted, Cassandra complained to Daniel during one of their increasingly frantic strategy sessions. People who used to invite us to everything are suddenly too busy to return phone calls. Daniel's response revealed the depth of his desperation. Maybe we should consider relocating. I have contacts in other states, places where Gabriel's influence doesn't reach. But Gabriel had anticipated this possibility. His network of business relationships extended far beyond their regional area, and his resources allowed him to monitor and influence his enemies' activities across multiple states. There would be no escape through geography. The first major victory in Gabriel's campaign came when Monica's design business collapsed. Her increasingly erratic behavior had alienated her most important clients, and her financial resources were being consumed by legal fees and the expensive lifestyle she had maintained during the affair. When her largest client, a luxury hotel chain that had extensive business relationships with Gabriel's construction company, canceled their contract citing concerns about project management capabilities, Monica's professional life effectively ended. Gabriel watched his wife's destruction with the same analytical detachment he brought to construction projects. Each phase proceeded according to schedule, each problem was addressed with appropriate resources, and each victory brought him closer to total success. "You're being remarkably thorough," Orlando observed during one of their progress reviews. Most people would have settled for a favorable divorce settlement. Gabriel's smile was cold and final. "I'm not most people, Orlando. When someone betrays me, they don't get to walk away and start over somewhere else. They get to live with the consequences of their choices for the rest of their lives." The legal proceedings were becoming a public spectacle that fascinated the city's social elite. Gabriel's reputation as a ruthless businessman was now enhanced by his performance as a betrayed husband who refused to be victimized. His methodical destruction of his enemies was viewed with a mixture of fear and admiration by those who observed it. As winter deepened, Gabriel's enemies found themselves trapped in an increasingly desperate situation with no viable escape routes. Their financial resources were depleted, their professional reputations were destroyed, and their personal relationships were fracturing under the pressure of Gabriel's relentless campaign. But Gabriel was far from finished. The legal and financial destruction was just the foundation for a more comprehensive reckoning that would ensure his enemies never recovered from their betrayal. Chapter 7. The Final Pieces. Spring brought the culmination of Gabriel's methodical destruction campaign. The divorce proceedings had become a legal massacre, with Monica's attorneys essentially conceding defeat on every major issue. Custody, property division, and financial support all had been decided in Gabriel's favor with such completeness that Monica's legal team was focusing solely on damage control. Daniel's situation had deteriorated beyond mere professional ruin. His real estate license had been revoked following the ethics investigation. His business assets had been liquidated to pay mounting debts, and his marriage to Cassandra was disintegrating under the financial and emotional pressure. The mountain cabin where he and Monica had planned their future together had been foreclosed upon, and Daniel was living in a modest apartment paid for by Cassandra's dwindling savings. But Gabriel's most sophisticated revenge was yet to be revealed. Throughout the winter, he had been constructing a business opportunity that would serve as the final trap for his enemies. Using shell companies and intermediary contacts, Gabriel created the appearance of a legitimate real estate development project that would require precisely the kind of expertise that Daniel desperately needed to demonstrate. The bait was irresistible: a luxury resort development in a neighboring state, backed by investors who claimed to be impressed by Daniel's previous work and willing to overlook his recent difficulties. The project offered not just employment, but partnership opportunities that could restore Daniel's financial position and professional reputation. Gabriel watched with cold satisfaction as Daniel threw himself into the opportunity with desperate enthusiasm. Phone calls, meetings, preliminary planning sessions. Daniel invested weeks of unpaid work developing proposals and strategic plans for the fictional development project. The revelation came during what Daniel believed was the final contract signing meeting. Instead of investors and development partners, Daniel found himself facing Gabriel in the conference room of a downtown hotel. "You really thought you could steal from me and then just start over somewhere else," Gabriel observed, his voice carrying the same conversational tone he had used during their family dinners. "You thought that charm and manipulation would be enough to overcome the consequences of betrayal." Daniel's face cycled through confusion, realization, and finally desperate anger. "You bastard. This was all fake." "The opportunity was fake," Gabriel corrected. "But the lesson is very real. I told you that I never forget and never forgive. This is what that looks like." Gabriel then revealed the full scope of his manipulation. Every contact Daniel had made, every meeting he had attended, every hope he had developed, all had been orchestrated by Gabriel's network of business associates and private investigators. The weeks of unpaid work, the emotional investment, the growing hope for redemption, all had been carefully constructed illusions designed to waste Daniel's time and crush his spirit. "But that's not all," Gabriel continued. "You see, while you've been chasing imaginary opportunities, I've been making sure that real opportunities will never materialize for you again. Gabriel explained that he had systematically contacted potential employers, business partners, and investment groups throughout the region and beyond. Daniel's professional reputation had been quietly but thoroughly destroyed through a network of business relationships that Daniel couldn't even identify, let alone counter. You'll find that everywhere you go, people will have heard about your ethics problems, your financial difficulties, and your questionable judgment. You'll never work in real estate again, Daniel. You'll never rebuild what you lost. This is your life now. The psychological impact was devastating. Daniel's desperate attempt to attack Gabriel physically was easily avoided. Gabriel had anticipated this possibility and had arranged for hotel security to be immediately available. Daniel's escort from the building marked the end of his last hope for professional redemption. Meanwhile, Monica was facing her own final reckoning. The divorce settlement had left her with minimal assets and no source of income. Her attempts to rebuild her design business were frustrated by the same network effects that had destroyed Daniel. Gabriel's influence within the luxury market ensured that potential clients would hear about her reliability issues and personal problems. But Gabriel's masterpiece was psychological rather than financial. He arranged for Monica to receive detailed documentation of his entire campaign against her and Daniel. The surveillance reports, the financial records, the recorded conversations, the evidence of manipulation and planning that had led to their destruction. I want you to understand exactly how thoroughly you were defeated, Gabriel explained during their final private conversation. I want you to know that every setback, every failure, every moment of despair was the result of my deliberate action. You didn't just make bad choices. You were outmaneuvered by someone who is better at this game than you could ever imagine. Monica's response was incoherent sobbing and desperate pleading for mercy, for a chance to start over, for some path toward redemption. Gabriel listened with the same detached attention he gave to construction reports. The time for mercy was when you decided to betray me, Gabriel responded. You chose to steal from me, to lie to me, to use my own daughter's cousin as a tool in your deception. These are the consequences of those choices. Gabriel's treatment of Cassandra was equally methodical. Her husband's accounting business had been systematically destroyed through the loss of Gabriel's contracts and the influence of Gabriel's business network. Their social isolation was complete. Former friends avoided them, and new relationships were poisoned by carefully placed information about their role in the conspiracy. You used your own daughter to protect a lie, Gabriel reminded Cassandra during their confrontation. You taught a 4-year-old to keep secrets that could have destroyed her family. What kind of mother does that? Cassandra's attempts to justify her actions fell on deaf ears. Gabriel had long since moved beyond anger or hurt. He was operating in a realm of pure calculation where actions had consequences and betrayal carried a permanent price. The legal proceedings concluded with a finality that left no room for appeal or negotiation. Gabriel received full custody of Samantha, retained all significant marital assets, and secured restraining orders that would prevent Monica from interfering with his and Samantha's new life. Chapter 8. Samantha's Choice. The custody arrangement that emerged from the divorce proceedings reflected Gabriel's complete victory, but it also presented him with the most delicate challenge of his entire campaign. Samantha, now 8 years old, was old enough to understand that her family had been destroyed, but too young to comprehend the complex moral and legal issues that had led to that destruction. Gabriel's approach to his daughter required the same strategic thinking he had applied to destroying his enemies, but with an entirely different objective. Where he had sought to crush Monica and Daniel, he needed to protect and nurture Samantha while ensuring she understood the lessons about loyalty, trust, and consequences that would shape her character. Daddy, when will I see Mommy again? Samantha asked during one of their evening conversations in Gabriel's study. The room where he had confronted his betrayers had been transformed into a warm space where father and daughter could talk openly about difficult subjects. Gabriel chose his words with the same precision he used in business negotiations. Your mother made some choices that hurt our family very badly, sweetheart. The court decided that you would be safer and happier living with me most of the time. But I miss her, Samantha said, her green eyes, so much like Monica's, filling with tears. Gabriel felt a moment of genuine pain for his daughter's suffering, but his resolve remained absolute. I know you do, and it's okay to miss her. But sometimes people we love do things that make it impossible for us to trust them anymore. Gabriel had spent months working with child psychologists to develop an approach that would help Samantha understand the situation without traumatizing her or turning her against her mother unnecessarily. The goal was not to make Samantha hate Monica, but to help her understand the importance of integrity and loyalty in relationships. The supervised visitation arrangements that the court had mandated allowed Monica to see Samantha twice a month for 4 hours at a time, but these meetings were monitored by court-appointed officials. Gabriel used these visits as teaching opportunities, helping Samantha process her emotions and understand the difference between loving someone and trusting them. People can change, Gabriel explained to Samantha after one particularly difficult visitation session where Monica had been visibly intoxicated. But they have to choose to change, and they have to prove that they've changed through their actions, not just their words. Gabriel's relationship with Samantha deepened as they navigated this challenging period together. He discovered that his daughter had inherited not just his intelligence and strategic thinking, but also his capacity for fierce loyalty and his intolerance for betrayal. The transformation became apparent during a family gathering at Gabriel's parents' house, where some relatives had suggested that perhaps Gabriel was being too harsh in his treatment of Monica and that families should forgive and move forward. 8-year-old Samantha listened to these conversations with growing agitation before finally speaking up with a clarity that stunned the adult relatives. "Mommy lied to Daddy and to me," Samantha said, her voice carrying an echo of Gabriel's own certainty. "She made Cousin Aaron keep secrets that hurt her tummy. She chose someone else over our family. Why should we trust her again?" Gabriel felt a moment of fierce pride combined with concern about his daughter's emerging hardness. She was developing the same uncompromising standards that had made Gabriel successful in business, but he worried about the emotional cost of such rigidity in personal relationships. "Samantha," Gabriel said gently, "it's important to understand that people make mistakes, and sometimes we can forgive them. But some mistakes show us who people really are, and we have to protect ourselves from being hurt again." As months passed, Gabriel observed his daughter's interactions with Monica during the supervised visits. Samantha was polite but distant, answering questions but not volunteering information about her life with Gabriel. She showed no interest in the gifts Monica brought or the activities Monica suggested. During one visit, Monica made the mistake of trying to explain her behavior to Samantha, offering justifications about being lonely and confused during her marriage to Gabriel. Samantha's response was devastating in its simplicity. "Daddy was lonely too, but he didn't lie to us." Gabriel received reports of these interactions from the court-appointed supervisor, who noted that Samantha seemed to have made a clear emotional choice about which parent she trusted and respected. The 8-year-old was demonstrating the same unforgiving judgment that had made Gabriel so formidable in business. The psychological evaluations that were part of the custody proceedings confirmed what Gabriel already knew. Samantha was thriving in his care while showing signs of anxiety and distress during visits with Monica. The child psychologist noted that Samantha had developed a sophisticated understanding of trust and betrayal that was unusual for her age. "She's remarkable," Dr. Angela Dixon, the court-appointed child psychologist, told Gabriel during one of their consultation sessions. "Her emotional intelligence is extraordinary, but I'm concerned about her developing an overly rigid view of human relationships." Gabriel considered this feedback carefully. He wanted Samantha to be strong and discerning, but he didn't want her to become incapable of forming intimate relationships or trusting anyone. "Samantha," Gabriel said during one of their evening talks, "I want you to understand something important. What happened with your mother was very unusual. Most people are trustworthy and loyal. You don't have to be suspicious of everyone just because some people can't be trusted." Samantha nodded solemnly, but Gabriel could see that she was processing these concepts through the lens of her own experience. She had learned, at age 8, that even people who claim to love you can betray you in devastating ways. The final test of Samantha's emerging character came when Monica, desperate to rebuild their relationship, offered to take Samantha on a vacation trip to Disney World during one of their supervised visits. Samantha's response was immediate and final. "I don't want to go anywhere with you. I want to stay with Daddy." Gabriel watched this interaction through the one-way mirror in the supervised visitation facility, feeling a complex mixture of satisfaction and sadness. His daughter had made her choice, and it was the same choice Gabriel had made. Loyalty and trust were not renewable resources, and once broken, they could not be repaired. Chapter 9. Legacy of Steel. 2 years after the pool party that had revealed Monica's betrayal, Gabriel stood once again at his office window, but now the view carried different meanings. His empire had grown beyond all previous projections. His reputation as both a businessman and a father had been enhanced by his handling of the divorce, and his relationship with Samantha had become the foundation of his personal life. Samantha, now 10 years old, had developed into a remarkable young woman who combined Gabriel's strategic intelligence with a moral clarity that impressed everyone who met her. She excelled academically, showed natural leadership abilities among her peers, and demonstrated the kind of loyalty and integrity that Gabriel had always valued above all other qualities. "Daddy, my teacher wants to meet with you about the advanced program," Samantha announced as she entered Gabriel's office, her homework completed with the same methodical precision that Gabriel brought to construction projects. Gabriel smiled at his daughter, feeling the deep satisfaction that came from knowing he had successfully protected and nurtured the most important relationship in his life. "We'll schedule that meeting, sweetheart. I'm very proud of your hard work." The supervised visitation arrangements with Monica had gradually been reduced and eventually eliminated entirely as Monica's inability to maintain sobriety and stability became undeniable. Gabriel felt no satisfaction in Monica's continued struggles. He simply viewed them as the inevitable consequences of choices she had made years earlier. Daniel's fate had been sealed by his complete inability to rebuild any aspect of his former life. Gabriel's systematic destruction of his professional reputation had proven so thorough that Daniel had eventually left the state, seeking opportunities in markets where Gabriel's influence was limited. The last reports suggested Daniel was working in retail sales in a distant city, his dreams of real estate success permanently shattered. Cassandra's family had also relocated, unable to endure the social and professional isolation that Gabriel's campaign had created. Her husband's accounting practice had never recovered from the loss of Gabriel's business, and their marriage had eventually collapsed under the financial and emotional pressure. Gabriel occasionally received updates about these former adversaries through his network of business contacts, but he felt no need to continue active measures against them. They had been effectively neutralized and removed from his sphere of influence. The lesson had been taught, and justice had been served. "Will you tell me about Mommy someday?" Samantha asked during one of their evening conversations, her question carrying more intellectual curiosity than emotional need. Gabriel considered his response carefully. Samantha was old enough now to understand more complex moral concepts, and Gabriel wanted her to learn from Monica's failure without becoming cynical about human relationships. "Your mother was someone who couldn't handle the responsibility that comes with loyalty and trust," Gabriel explained. "She chose immediate gratification over long-term commitment. She valued excitement over integrity. Those choices destroyed our family and hurt you, and that's something I'll never forgive." Samantha nodded thoughtfully. "But not everyone makes those choices." "No," Gabriel assured her. "Most people understand that relationships require sacrifice and commitment. Most people value trust more than they value temporary pleasure. You'll meet people who are worthy of your loyalty, Samantha, but you'll also need to be able to identify those who aren't." Gabriel had spent considerable time developing Samantha's ability to assess character and identify trustworthy people. Their conversations often involved analyzing the behavior of people in their social circle, discussing the difference between reliable and unreliable individuals, and exploring the concepts of loyalty, integrity, and consequences. These lessons had practical applications as Samantha navigated her social relationships at school and in their community. Gabriel was pleased to observe that his daughter had developed friendships with children who shared her values while maintaining appropriate distance from those who demonstrated questionable character. The business empire that Gabriel had built continued to expand, but his approach to leadership had evolved to incorporate the lessons he had learned from his personal betrayal. He now placed even greater emphasis on loyalty and character when evaluating potential business partners and employees. Trust is like structural steel, Gabriel explained to his management team during a quarterly review meeting. It provides the foundation that allows everything else to function. Without it, the entire structure becomes unstable and dangerous. This philosophy had created a corporate culture that was renowned for both its success and its uncompromising standards. Employees who demonstrated loyalty and integrity found themselves rewarded with unprecedented opportunities for advancement. Those who showed signs of dishonesty or disloyalty were removed from the organization with swift efficiency. Gabriel's reputation within the business community had taken on an almost legendary quality. Stories of his systematic destruction of his wife's affair were whispered in boardrooms and country clubs as cautionary tales about the dangers of betraying Gabriel Tate. This reputation served as both protection and warning. Potential adversaries understood that crossing Gabriel carried consequences far beyond typical business competition. The social circle that had once included Monica, Daniel, and Cassandra had reformed around Gabriel and Samantha, with new friendships built on more solid foundations. Gabriel was selective about the people he allowed into their personal life, applying the same rigorous standards to social relationships that he used in business. "You've created something remarkable," Dr. Dixon observed during one of her follow-up sessions with Gabriel and Samantha. "Your relationship with your daughter is exceptionally strong, and she's developing into an extraordinary young woman. But I wonder sometimes if you've both become too insulated from the messiness of normal human relationships." Gabriel considered this feedback but ultimately rejected it. The messiness that Dr. Dixon described was often just another term for the lack of standards and accountability that had allowed Monica's betrayal to occur in the first place. Gabriel preferred clarity and certainty to the dangerous ambiguity of unconditional forgiveness. As evening approached, Gabriel and Samantha settled into their familiar routine of homework review, dinner conversation, and strategic games that challenged both their intellectual abilities. These moments represented the peace and security that Gabriel had fought to protect and preserve. "Daddy," Samantha said as they finished their chess game. She had won, demonstrating the same strategic thinking that had made Gabriel successful. "I'm glad Mommy made her choices." Gabriel looked at his daughter with surprise. "What do you mean, sweetheart? If she hadn't betrayed us, I might never have learned how important loyalty really is," Samantha explained with matter-of-fact clarity. "Now I know what real trust looks like, and I know what happens when people break it. I'll never make Mommy's mistakes." Gabriel felt a moment of profound satisfaction and concern. His daughter had learned the lessons he wanted to teach, but perhaps too well. She was developing the same unforgiving standards that had made Gabriel formidable, but had also isolated him from more conventional relationships. "Remember, Samantha," Gabriel said gently, "the goal isn't to be suspicious of everyone. The goal is to be wise about who deserves your trust, and to protect that trust once you've given it." As they prepared for bed, Gabriel reflected on the transformation that had occurred over the past 2 years. The man who had been betrayed by his wife had evolved into something stronger and more purposeful. The father who had nearly lost his daughter to a conspiracy of adultery had created an unbreakable bond based on shared values and mutual respect. Gabriel Tate had not just survived betrayal. He had transformed it into triumph. His enemies had been defeated so thoroughly that they served as object lessons for anyone who might consider crossing him in the future. His daughter had learned lessons about loyalty and consequence that would protect her throughout her life. Standing at his bedroom window, looking out over the city he had helped build, Gabriel felt the deep satisfaction of a man who had faced his greatest challenge and emerged victorious. He had proven that betrayal carried consequences, that loyalty was rewarded, and that some lines, once crossed, could never be uncrossed. Monica and Daniel had learned that Gabriel Tate never forgave and never forgot. Samantha had learned that strength and integrity were the foundations of all meaningful relationships. And Gabriel himself had learned that the capacity for ruthless justice, when applied with intelligence and precision, could protect everything he valued most. The legacy Gabriel was building was not just financial success or business empire. It was a demonstration that character mattered, that choices had consequences, and that loyalty was not just an admirable quality, but a fundamental requirement for earning a place in his life. As Gabriel turned away from the window and headed towards sleep, he carried with him the certainty that he had created something enduring and valuable. His enemies had been vanquished, his daughter was protected and thriving, and his own character had been tested and proven unbreakable. Gabriel Tate had faced betrayal and responded with systematic justice. He had protected what mattered most and eliminated what threatened his family. In the end, he had proven that some men cannot be stolen from, cannot be